Okay, well, good day, everyone. Welcome to one of PrimePay's monthly broker webinars. We hold a monthly broker webinar on the first Wednesday, generally, of each and every month here throughout the year. And we are thrilled that you've taken time out of your busy schedule to sit with us here today. So today's title of our webinar is PEOs versus benefit brokers. All right, so this should be the match of the future, right? This is what everybody's talking about. Oh, well, maybe they're talking about the Cavs and the Warriors actually at this time. But we're going to be talking today, though, about the X's and the O's on beating PEOs. So again, we're thrilled that we have you here today. My name is Steve Jackson. Welcome. I am the Senior Vice President of Strategic Development and Channel Sales here at PrimePay, and we want to welcome you here today. Let me cover some of the logistics, at least, of our webcast today. As you probably have noted, we have muted your lines. We do that because there's quite a bit of folks, at least on the webcast here today, and that avoids or kind of redirects a lot of the distractions that's going on in your offices and so forth. But that does not mean we do not want to hear from you. And what I'd ask you to do is go into the Go to Meeting menu bar. There's a question box. And as I go through the content here today, there might be some specific questions that, maybe general or very specific to a situation that you want to ask, okay? I will do my best at the end of the webinar, possibly during the webinar, to answer those questions. If it is very direct about a specific, prospective client or client of yours, we might want to take that offline, and we'll get back to you here offline with those answers, okay? But we do want to hear from you. So as I go along today, all throughout the webcast, please go ahead and type in your question. The number one question that we receive: can I get a copy of this presentation? There's a couple ways, actually, that you can get your hands on the presentation here today. One, for everyone here, we do provide we are recording this webinar, and we will provide this link on our YouTube Broker Concierge channel. And usually 2 days after the webinar, so around Friday, that link should be live, and then you can review, this presentation at your leisure, or certainly pass that on to others within your office, so they can view it at any time. For our broker concierge partners, we will be providing to you the slide deck. And we always post that within your broker portal. You're able to access that at any time. And so for those of your internal teams who might have missed the presentation here today, you certainly can provide that slide deck for internal use, or certainly as you're talking and speaking with current prospective clients or clients, you might want to use some of the items here that are in there in this presentation, and you certainly have the capability and ability to do so. So those are two ways that you'll be able to view or at least see the information presented today. And I'll follow up here at the end of the webinar and provide more detail to that, so you have the information that you need. All right, so please go ahead and get in those, get in the question box and go ahead and ask those questions as they come to mind. So today, as we have throughout the year, we have had many topics throughout this year. Last month, if you missed, our webinar was on HSAs and riding the wave of HSAs. We've had specific webinars on HRAs, on payroll, on the new QSERA, the Qualified Small Employer HRA, was what we used to kick off our webinars for the year here in 2017. There's been some great topics, and a lot of our topics are centered around key regulatory issues. We talk through the guidance, the instruction, the requirement, the obligation that needs to be fulfilled around that regulatory guidance. And then we try to deliver it to you through these webinars in a way that is practical, a way that you can easily take it and then communicate that with those internally or certainly with your clients and prospects. We want to make this thing real and visible and something that you can easily use, not something that you can run away from because you don't understand it. We want you to understand it. So today, our webinar is a little different, but it is centered around kind of a key pillar that we try to focus on here within our Broker Concierge program, which is focused on helping you see, visualize, and drive opportunity through competitive threats that may be out there today. So let's go over our agenda here today, and I'm calling it here our PEO playbook. I realize we're here in June. It's not really football season, but just stay with me. Stay with me a little bit as I utilize a lot of analogies here as we talk about football and just teamwork and so forth. I think you'll like it, and I think you'll understand. So we're going to kind of provide in this slide deck and in this webinar here today kind of your own personal PEO playbook. And so there's a few things that I want you to understand. I think that for the majority of folks that are on the webcast here today, I mean, you certainly have an understanding of a PEO. But I want to try to I don't want this to become necessarily just a PEO 101 kind of conversation. I want to really try to talk about, well, why are employers interested in that type of a solution? So what is it that about the PEO that's meeting the various employer demands? Okay, why are employers so interested in this strategy and these solutions? We do want to define it. I mean, I do want to make sure there's maybe many on the call here today that may need just further definition about a PEO. So let's talk about that, because there is some, a little bit of confusion. And I think hopefully I can address some of those key areas where confusion might sit. We absolutely want to talk about key attributes of the PEO, but we also want to bring in just a few actually, different compliance situations that exist within these co-employment arrangements, okay? It's not just an employer kind of signing up with a PEO. It is a little more detailed, certainly, with that. And I think you guys know that. But we do want to kind of touch on just a handful of compliance situations that may exist with these co-employment arrangements. And then at the end, we do want to cover, okay, a lot of information about a PEO, right? We're going to talk about a lot of advantages or disadvantages, these attributes. You might look at it and go, well, what in the world? How am I supposed to really attack that? And so we do want to provide some simple just blocking and tackling strategies because ultimately we want you to prevail. Right? You want to prevail. You want to succeed. When you're up against competitively, just whatever competitive area that is with you as you're going after a certain prospective client, you want to prevail. And so we want to cover some strategies that we think would actually help you to prevail over certainly the PEO. Let me just first discuss because I do want to say here that before we get started, this webinar here today is by no means a time for me or certainly PrimePay to bash a particular competitor that may be out there. A PEO is a competitor to many different entities that are out there, technology platforms, HR consultants. It's not just the benefits broker, right? But it's one area that is really succeeding out there, and you need those tools, resources, and information and expertise to really go after that. So one of the key pillars of our broker concierge program, one of the objectives that we try to achieve with each one of our partners centers around one of our pillars, which is neutralizing competitive threats. And today's webinar is really centered around providing you with the information, the content, the education on a specific competitor, that is out there, that employers are certainly going after and enrolling in and signing up with. And we want to be able to give you the tools so that you can effectively neutralize that competitive threat. So today's webinar is not at all about bashing a competitor. I mean, here at PrimePay, we want to recognize competitors, but we want to kind of dig into that competitor, understand them. What are their advantages and disadvantages? What are your unique differentiators and so forth? And so today, that's what we want to try to do. We want to really try to speak to those advantages and disadvantages so that you as an agency and as a benefits broker can truly look and equip your agency to compete head on. And as I had mentioned before, we want you to prevail and score a touchdown, right? We want you to keep scoring touchdowns. In football, if the offense if they can keep going up and down that field and scoring a touchdown every time they're touching the ball, you're going to be tough to beat. no matter if your defense is a little shaky, right? If you're scoring touchdowns, you're going to be tough to beat. And so here at PrimePay and our Broker Concierge program, our objective is to really help you score a lot more touchdowns than you're certainly giving up. All right, so what I first want to kind of cover here with you is I want to put a little perspective. First, I want to put a little perspective on you and your agency, and then I also want to put perspective on what an employer is ultimately making decisions on, like what's driving their decision-making process, okay? So let's I'm just going to put this, try to bring a picture to life here. And you guys know this, right? The small group market, there is, the community rating out there that is prolific, out there. So the rate is the rate, right? So if you're just speak for a moment, you're competing kind of head to head with another broker, right? I mean, that's going to happen consistently, out there. Well, in a community rated type of a product, right? I mean, if you're broker one and you propose the Aetna PPO and it's got 24 employees, again, for without digging into every single detail, but if you end up promoting that specific plan, and broker number two promotes that same plan, and broker number three promotes that same plan, in effect, the rate should be the rate, right? So you all should reflect a single rate. You should all reflect the same family rate, so on and so forth. And so what I want you to, as you, if you're the business owner for your agency, or even if you're just a producer, I mean, you're ultimately thinking about how you're delivering your products and your services to the market, right? What makes you different? I think I've asked a lot of you, many of you over the years, hey, what drives you? What's your unique differentiator that you pose out there to the market? So the standing out, what you have to do, right, is be able to stand out. You can't just propose the rate. You have to provide additional expertise or solutions that employer is going to say, oh, hey, broker number one, I like what you're offering. I like the complete package that you're delivering. And so you have this challenge, right? And I've just simply kind of categorized your challenge into three areas. Many of you might say, well, Steve, that's very high level, and it is for the sake of the webinar here today. But we've got kind of challenges 1, 2, and 3 here, right? So we have number one, grow your book. If you just think of yourself as a business owner, and we're going to translate this over to your employers here in a second, you want to grow your book, right? You want to increase your opportunities. But with growing your book, you're faced with competition. There potentially is a lack of differentiation, right? Broker number one, broker number two, broker number three. Hey, you all are experts in health benefits, the medical offering. I'm an expert in Aetna products, whatever it may be. So there could be, we can dispute that, but there can be this lack of differentiation just right on the surface. Clearly, in growing your book, the need for growing your book has even grown more because, you've had over the years with ACA, a reduction in overall commission strategy and so forth. But another big area too, number two there, is retaining your book. So with that reduction in commissions and just stronger obligations of clients, regulations, the technical guidance that's out there now that you have to be very strong on, it's very important for you to retain your book. But the challenge there as well is there's market disruptors, right? And I'll show you a picture here just in a little bit of just some of those disruptors that are out there. Technology demands. Your employers are certainly demanding greater efficiencies. So technology is big and more of a simplified offering. Here at PrimePay, we talk quite a bit we want to create a raving fan here at PrimePay, right? As a client. But we got to make it easier for that client to do business with PrimePay, and that's no different than you, right? You've got to be able to provide a simplified offering. You've got to be able to communicate that. That's a challenge, when you're offering so much, so many different variants of your offering to a particular employer. And then lastly, compliance. Many of you have stated over the last many months and even years now, even due to ACA, that compliance is number one. You have become, in effect, that compliance officer with your clients. And it is ACA that's been a big component. We're so thrilled to have gotten at least the first ACA reporting requirement done last year, right? Because that took so much of your time, but it's it's always taking your time. You know, the ever-changing regulations with fiduciary rules to overtime rules. I mean, keeping track of all of that is a tremendous challenge for you. ERISA, just all those things that an employer is coming at you with, they expect you to provide those answers, as that trusted advisor. So as you look at the number 2, retaining your book, and looking at the disruptors, I mean, I also just I'll point you to some of the competitive landscape. And again, you guys know this, okay, right, to a degree, but I want you to start thinking about why those employers are ultimately making these decisions to move in this direction. So you have a disruptor, right, which I'm just naming, it's the Gustos of the world, Zenefits, namely. What are they doing? Wow. They have just popped up, really, over the last couple of years. Gusto now, just over the last few years, has over 40,000 clients. And guess what? Where they had been more of a payroll company, they now are introducing benefits and HR technology and other areas similarly from the Zenefits model, certainly as namely as well. These are disruptors. Sometimes a bad thing, right? But a very good thing, because it's a gut check of what clients are demanding and what they want, what they need for their company. So to some degree, we're thankful. Other reasons not so much, right? Well, you also have the big guys, the national payroll providers out there that are providing complete solutions to their clients, in employee management solutions, but clearly have the opportunity to offer a PEO model, or certainly that traditional brokerage side of things as well. And then today, we're going to focus here on the PEO side, where you have certainly Paychex and just names, Insperity and ADP and TriNet. And these are just a few, right? There's a lot of PEOs in the marketplace, but I want you to begin to think about, okay, so we see the disruptors. We see from a competitive level for you as a benefits broker, they're growing. The competitors are offering more solutions, and the numbers of these competitors are certainly growing. So let's look at maybe the big 3. Okay, well, why is that the case? And here's what I'm labeling as kind of the big 3. Business owners are seeking ways to improve efficiencies, right? So a business owner is no different than you to a large part. You want to manage your cost, right? You want to find ways to reduce your cost. An employer is looking to grow their revenue, right? I mean, an employer started the business because they love their widget, right? They're passionate about their widget. They want to make a lot of widgets. They want to make a lot of variations of that widget. They want to grow that revenue. They want to get in different geographic areas. They want to add a new location. I mean, they want to grow, and that's where their passion resides, right there in that middle area for most of those business owners. But then lastly, a big area, and this is something that we see from our business clients all the time, is just the ability or the capability for that employer to remain compliant from federal scopes, IRS, Department of Labor. There are so many of those jurisdictions, right? And you've got state, you've got local. I mean, there's so much to be compliant about. And how does a business owner, how are they able to stay compliant, to stay up to date on those various things? How are they going to do that? And so that's why they are seeking more than ever these types of entities that can provide a complete solution for them. And so let's go ahead and dive into this just a little bit. So PEOs kind of defined. We definitely see the demand for these solutions. They are thriving. And so let me just give some statistics here that I think you'll want to see. Okay, and I'm going to throw 3 up on the board here right now. But let me just, before I even go into those 3, let me kind of throw out some statistical aspects of where PEOs have grown here over the last several years. The current size of the PEO industry is between $136 billion and $156 billion as it's measured in gross revenues, okay? Okay, that ain't not nothing, right? That's a lot of billions there. PEOs provide services to between 156,000 and 180,000 small and medium-sized businesses, where these businesses employ between 2.5 to 3.5 million people. So the average client size within a PEO is 19. 19. So these are small entities. So when you think about the number of businesses that are flowing through these PEOs, it's a huge amount. Now, a couple years ago, we had performed a webinar. We talked a little bit certainly about PEOs at the time. And at the time, so this is going back to 2014, I think, time period. So I guess roughly 3 years ago, the National Association of PEOs, so NAPEO, that organization, stated that there was probably no more than about 700 PEOs across the country at that time. Today, there are between 800 and 1,000 PEOs currently operating in the United States. So it has grown significantly. And when you look at that broad-based over the, over the country, not all states are exactly PEO friendly, right? You might be sitting in a state where it's just, it kind of works, but it's not really, the state really is, it's just not as friendly for PEOs. Pennsylvania, it's kind of one of those. But boy, check out Florida, California, some of these other states where PEOs they're prolific, they shine, they're in those particular states. So the size of the PEO industry, I mean, it's very important actually to understand, because they now have some great metrics, statistics on the employer base, the employee base, right? They're capturing some really good information. And I show those first 3 items on the board here because I found them really interesting. So employers, they state here, and this was a recent study by Lori Bassi and Dan McMurray, these economists, and they have found that employers using PEOs, professional employer organizations, that those employers grow 7 to 9% faster than those employers outside of a PEO. Number 2 there, that these employers have 10 to 14% lower employee turnover, okay, and are 50% less likely to go out of business. That last one kind of blew me away. 50% less likely to go out of business. So they're doing something right? I mean, if you are a small to medium-sized business and you're producing you're producing your widgets, and you potentially can imagine your business growing an additional 7 to 9%, each year because you're participating within a PEO. I'm telling you, that's attractive. A chance for you, maybe a greater chance for you not to go out of business potentially. I mean, it might depend on your widget, right? But where you have a greater chance to not go out of business, that is huge. So what you see as I did a ton of research and information, a key messaging here in regard to what PEOs offer is really the ability for that employer to improve on their productivity, to increase their profitability, and the last one here is the big one. It's to allow focus on their core mission. I mean, think about that group that has 19 employees. That owner is wearing every hat, right? They don't have an HR manager, you're right? So if you could tell them that they could actually spend much more time on really focused on their widget, on their passion, that is a tremendous advantage, certainly from a PEO perspective, that I think is important, certainly to understand. All right, so I'm showing you a few things here on the board, and I certainly am not going to go through every single one of these items, but it's really to paint a picture. And there's going to be a series of check marks that are going to be started here on the page, and it's a red check mark, and it's going to check off, if you just follow it, it's going to check off every single one of these items. The attraction of PEOs is that these PEOs do a lot for an employer. And as you can see there from the top, from payroll administration, you keep tracking down to OSHA, administration to skills-based testing, the PEPM pricing, HR consulting, healthcare administration. They take on, in this co-employment arrangement, they take on a shared risk, right? They take on a shared responsibility of all of these services. Now, not every PEO, do understand, there's a lot of PEOs out there today. There's a brand new certification process that was just instituted, and as of at least yesterday, there were 84 PEOs across the country that have officially become certified. And the IRS has really pushed hard to establish this certification program for these PEOs to be certified. An employer will definitely want to ensure that their PEO is certified out there. And again, as of today, there's about 84. That have been certified there. So the PEO relationship, involves this contractual relationship, but an allocation and sharing of certain employer responsibilities. And if we could just take this list, and there's about 30 plus items here on this list, and basically to tell an employer, hey, we got this. Again, that provides a strong attraction for the employer to be able to choose potentially a PEO. But there's so many more factors, right? And so what I've done here is I've kind of broken this down a little further, okay? And I want to try to provide to you some key primary advantages of a PEO, also the disadvantages. And the reason that I'm doing this is, as I go through this, I want you to think about your agency. Okay, what I'm showing you here with these four, these are strong advantages for a PEO. But there's ways that your agency can certainly be able to compete and adapt and provide, your clients in these same areas. But you need to understand where these advantages sit so that you can, go after them appropriately, right? So just understanding your competitor. So these four, I've broken down. These are high level. There are many other advantages, right? So I've provided about 30 plus, on the previous slide. But these are primary reasons that your clients will want to seek out this particular solution as a PEO. So the first here is fewer administrative tasks. Clearly, as we look at that list in the prior slide, here's roughly 30 plus items that an employer, although they'll share in some of those responsibilities, those main responsibilities would be borne by that PEO. And so this really enables, with these fewer administrative tasks and responsibilities, it goes back to the information I provided about you, the broker, right? We need to make it simple. We need to be able to provide solutions that are simplified, that where an employer can, they're still very much involved, but they have a reduction in those overall tasks. Well, PEOs have an extreme advantage here, right? They basically say, hey, sign a contract with us, and we are actually going to take care of the day-to-day, the mundane, the arduous, HR-related, payroll-related, benefit-related types of tasks. You will not have to worry about those, okay? So an employer truly can focus on their specific passions, build those widgets. Another key advantage that they have, and I put it in quotes because I saw it time and time again in a lot of the PEO information that I studied. A PEO truly can provide a strong, comprehensive benefit platform for every employer that signs up within that PEO. And if you think about a PEO employer size of around 19, right? Is an employer size of 19, are they achieving an S&P 500 level benefit package or program offering? Is that something that they're getting today normally? Generally not. In some cases, yes. But a lot of times that small employer is providing some, the basics. They're providing good benefits, but it's not at the level where it's so comprehensive with just what a S&P 500 level type of a company would provide. And so a PEO does have a great advantage of providing a benefit plan structure from not just the medical plan, not just dental vision, right? But it's actually going much deeper into the ancillary benefits from critical illness to term life to cancer. I mean, all of those types of items, but it also goes deeper into an FSA, an HSA, even 401k, retirement plans. Maybe there's 529 plans, right? I mean, there's just a lot of different things that they're driving on that local level to that small employer. The next thing is cost savings. Clearly an employer, a small to medium-sized employer, is they're trying to achieve those cost savings. I'd mentioned that's one of the big three. They're looking for savings. Now, in the small group market, right, the rate is the rate, right? Is a small group employer or an employer in that small group market able to achieve the same types of savings or pricing, effectiveness than a larger employer? Well, a PEO not only has, your group, which has 19 employees, they actually are made up of 10,000 employees, or much more, or much less, but still much more than 19. So the types of benefit offerings that a PEO could deliver could, and I just say could, asterisk and all, could provide a health plan option or offerings that could provide lower cost to that employer. A big reason, too, on workers' comp, you might have an employer that just, they've had a bad claims experience, right? Loss ratio is not good. And so maybe they're finding it difficulty to be a part of, or, to certainly sign up, having to, instead of going into the state risk pool, I mean, is there an opportunity here with the PEO to be able to get a cheaper workers' comp policy? Now, again, the employer isn't making the decision to move to a PEO just because of workers' comp, but it's a strong reason why they might consider certainly moving in that direction, because it could save them considerable amount in premiums. And then lastly, state employment insurance rates. PEOs certainly can offer potential advantage here in this area to drive those rates even less. So cost savings is a big advantage that a PEO has. The fourth item here is compliance. Now, I have mentioned it before, so we don't need to dive headlong into it once again. But the compliance side for an employer with the size of 19 employees, where they have no HR manager, they need help. That employer, that business owner cannot just put on every hat and do it as effectively as they need to. They don't know what they don't know. And so a PEO provides tremendous amount of expertise to that employer, and provide it not just in some written format for the employer to distribute it. They literally take care of it. They make sure that the compliance needs are being met with that employer. So these four things are the key primary reasons that your clients, prospective clients, employers in general, are going to seek out this particular solution. But hey, with every advantage, there are disadvantages, and so I do want to touch base here on the disadvantages. This is very important as well. If we think about it from a competitive standpoint, hey, I'm going to hammer this, home till there's no tomorrow, right? So we do want to talk about the disadvantages, but again, you need to treat the advantages with the same passion, because those advantages are what you need to turn into your advantages for your agency. And again, we're going to talk about that here as we talk about our block and tackle strategies. But on the disadvantage side, okay, first one that I list here on the upper left is cost. So basically, through a PEO, it is offered on a PEPM, kind of a flat fee basis, or a percentage of gross payroll. The first here, I'll just mention on the gross payroll, it does vary, maybe based on salaried employees versus hourly employees. I've seen, I guess, in my research, I did see something around that 3%, 2% mark, possibly for salaried employees, and I did see it as high as 15, although that's pretty high, but maybe more something in that 3 to 10 would be if the employer was paying as a percentage of gross payroll, okay? That can be significant, okay? But what I see primarily out there is generally more of a PEPM type of a basis, okay? And so what we're seeing is that, generally speaking, a a smaller group, is going to be sitting around $59 to $125 per employee per month. Now, again, every PEO, to a degree, is a little different. Their offerings are a little different. You can establish a PEO where maybe you're not providing benefits, okay, or other specific solutions that may not be included. And so that might enable a cheaper option for the employer. But generally what I saw in a very prominent, popular PEO here throughout the country, you're sitting at $125 per employee per month. So that's $1,500 a year for the employee. So for that group of 19, they're going to spend about $28,000 a year to be able to contract with the PEO for that benefit. So the cost, from a cost perspective, keep in mind that cost has no bearing on additional costs that will be involved to pay for the workers' comp premium, to pay for the health plan premiums, payroll. All of those costs are still going to exist. But for you to be able, or as an employer, to contract with that PEO, it's looking at those rates, and that can be very prohibitive. A next big thing is the loss of control. And I say this because, when you think about a business owner, and you guys deal with them each and every day, they do like having that bit of control. And when you contract, and even in a co-employment relationship with a PEO, the employer, the business owner, is going to lose some control. They can't choose the health benefits. They can't choose the specific benefit offerings. They certainly can choose the PEO, but they're going to get what that PEO is ultimately offering. And when it comes to some specifics to HR, hiring and terming, and certainly other key decisions that need to be made, they're not necessarily altogether the ones making that decision. And so there is this loss of control that is out there from a PEO and contracting with a PEO. The next is one size fits all. This one I think is really big, and it's actually a big opportunity, I think, for you. But it is this one size fits all type of approach, which is nice. Here at PrimePay, within your agency, we want clients to come to your agency, come to PrimePay, one-stop shop. We can deliver it all, right? But there's a difference here from a PEO. Not only are the changes made by the PEO, but are all of the offerings and solutions truly tailored to fit each employer's needs? That group of 19 that just contracted with that PEO, do they really need that specific benefit offering that they're paying for in that EPM pricing? One fee, you pay it, and it's done. And you get all of those offerings whether you need that specific offering or not. And so this one-size-fits-all strategy, for a lot of small to medium-sized employers, certainly those groups under 100, it's almost better to have that a la carte type of approach where they're simply paying for the things that they need. Lastly, and I do believe that this is a big disadvantage, and I think it's what has made you as a benefits broker just shine over the many years and through today, is that you provide personalized care for each one of your clients. And it's not to say that a PEO does not have a heart, does not carry out their actions with any type of emotion, whatsoever. They're not robots. They are some real people there. But there is this lack of any type of personalized service. And I think from a business owner perspective, you're contracting with a PEO, it's a business relationship, and you know what? They're going to react and provide service in a very business-like fashion. And so a business owner kind of loses some of that personalized touch, which honestly is very important, because that owner is not just a business relationship with the employees, but they also are diving into their personal lives certainly as well. So these are 4 primary reasons that your clients are going to seek out other solutions, right? So this is kind of hitting them square in the face, and I'm really thinking or rethinking my decision here to go forward with the PEO. I do want to talk about a couple things here in relation to a co-employment relationship. So, very specifically, a PEO is going to establish a contractual relationship with its client, which is that employer. They're going to assume many different employment responsibilities, for specified purposes, and each PEO will have a contract that's different from the next one that will reflect exactly what that PEO will perform for each of the employees of that employer, okay? So it's a co-employment arrangement, okay, and the IRS has recognized leased employees. They've stated that there can be two employers, okay? So PEOs are fine. There's no problem with them holding and performing specific employer types of obligations on behalf of that employer, which is their client. So just a couple things. These are some compliance items as it relates to the co-employment arrangement. FMLA, I've been talking about an employer group size of 19. That's the average size anyway. Well, FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act, it really focuses on leaves of absence, as you know, and those regulations generally do not exist until you're an employer that has 50 or more employees. Well, because you are counting, the IRS would count that leased employee as a common law employee, that employer is going to kind of fall in line with these regulations, whether they expected to or not, as part of that PEO arrangement. COBRA. Now, this has been kind of debated a lot over the years, so I guess I do want to state this with an asterisk here to a degree, because I think the arguments have landed on both sides of the aisle. But think about COBRA. This group of 19, technically, they do not fall under the federal obligations of COBRA. So does the small employer exemption apply? Well, the IRS has stated kind of repeatedly over the years that, as I mentioned before, leased employees are treated as, and the official term is common law employees. Therefore, they do need to count them for COBRA purposes. Well, a PEO has thousands of employees generally. And so these small employers generally are going to be offering COBRA continuation where they may not have needed to. Maybe they only needed to do a mini COBRA or state continuation, but in this case, they would need to provide that full federal COBRA. So again, just some compliance items to think about. Shared risk. Each employer is going to need to enter each contract in a way that's best for them. Find that PEO that's going to share that risk, appropriately for their company. So the contract, listen, it's the contract from the PEO, so it's going to be more PEO friendly than employer friendly. But that co-employment arrangement, the employer is going to really want to have that studied to ensure that they know exactly what are the obligations that the PEO will fulfill and what obligations ultimately fall on that employer. Listen, the employer is always the employer, plan sponsor and the like. So the employer is going to be obligated to really share in a greater part of that risk, even though the PEO is involved. But there are certain liabilities and indemnifications that the PEO is certainly going to take on, which is a valued benefit to the employer. Bundled pricing, again, through this co-employment arrangement, as that employer is, contracting with the PEO, they're buying everything, within that PEO. Upfront fees. It takes roughly, 3 to 6 weeks-ish or so to get finally, kind of through the onboarding of getting established within that PEO. And so there can be some large upfront fees associated with that. And so that's why it is important for employers to ensure that they're actually aligning or signing up with those certified PEOs, so that they know that PEO is going to stick around because they are paying some upfront fees with that. Another area is with small groups that are out there. A lot of these groups have HRAs. They have other plans, FSAs, HSA plans, right? And so they come into the PEO and now they're going to adopt the plans, the offerings that PEO is offering. Well, can an employer themselves just offer an HRA if they want to? Under this co-employment arrangement, it makes an HRA a little difficult for an individual separate employer, a client of the PEO, to establish an HRA specific for their employee needs. It most definitely would need to be coordinated and implemented through the PEO offering. You run into a lot of funding issues with that. You run into some non-discrimination testing issues in handling that. Not that it can't be done, but it would be very difficult. So plan design choice. Once that employer has adopted that co-employment arrangement, really they're at the bequest of whatever that PEO is ultimately driving out to their clients. FICA. Does an employer want to, or should they switch kind of mid-year? I don't know. Probably they should really take it into consideration. One of the compliance items is as simple as FICA. If they're switching in the middle of the year, maybe that employer has already contributed, maxed out on FICA considerations, matching FICA and so forth. Well, when they sign up with that PEO, guess what? It starts all over again. The PEO is going to take out what is needed, from that employer. Not to say that employer can't get that money back through, as they finish their year and so forth, but still, that's going to be a cost that employer is going to need to initiate. So the co-employment arrangement, not a terrible thing. It is clearly laid out in the agreement, but it can provide some additional compliance items, issues, concerns, challenges that an employer is going to want to think about before they actually sign up, with that PEO. All right. So some block and tackle strategies. Where we ultimately want to take this, well, listen, where you want to take this as an agency is that you do want to prevail over the competition. So you know what you do best, right? So in that slide, early on where I'm just talking about, well, what is your differentiator? If the rate is the rate, what is your specific differentiator that you have, right? So, and you all have one or many differentiators potentially, but do you have all the specific strategies as we look specifically about a PEO relationship? Have you really filled in all the gaps? Have you been able to accommodate what employers are ultimately demanding today? I came across this article here actually just yesterday, and I loved this statement. It was in The Life of a Broker here by Aaron Moriarty-Seiler, just here on June 5th. And it was an article about just life of a broker. Things, a lot of things are changing. Challenges are out there. And Reed Smith, one of the brokers that she interviewed, had made several statements, but this one really stood out to me. And he was just talking about, listen, the art of talking about business insurance and health insurance, that's what I should be doing daily. I'm an expert in that. But he continued and he said, employers need a consultant committed to driving sustainable change and ensuring their benefit strategy is aligned with their business strategy. Interesting, right? So as I kind of led you initially thinking about where your challenges are, right? But also thinking about where the employer challenges sit and what they're demanding. If you simply are going about your business discussing the benefit strategy on a day-to-day business, renewal, new business, prospective clients, and so forth, but focus there and not aligning that strategy with the overall business strategy of that client, you are missing a ton of opportunity. And in fact, if an employer is indeed looking at that big list, right, that 30-plus list of items that a PEO, kind of those attributes of the PEO of what they deliver on, wow, if you're missing all on that and you're just focused on the benefit strategy, guess what? It's going to provide an opportunity for that employer to think about maybe other opportunities that may come along. So I want you to think about your agency a little different with this benefit strategy, aligning that with the client's business strategy. That's so important. So I want you to think this, kind of a do-it-yourself, create your own. If you all have heard about an administrative service organization, an ASO, this ultimately enables you and your agency to be in the center of the action. So you are and will be that five-star consultant, right? In an administrative service organization, you are running the show. You're facilitating, you're partnering, you're providing the solutions needed for that particular client. So you really are running and driving the opportunities and offerings for your clients. You are the broker of record on all the medical and ancillary offerings, right? We don't want to forget that. That's what you do. That's where your expertise lies. But what ASOs can do, what an administrative service organization can provide, and its ability to tie in all of the identical HR types of offerings, HR consulting, resources, LMS systems, those time and attendance systems, those things that are needed from an HR perspective, benefit, payroll administration, but also insurance, risk insurance types of administration like workers' comp and so forth. But you're able through an ASO to deliver that same identical comprehensive solution, and there's no or zero co-employment contracts, right? That employer can come to your agency, and be able to get all of those identical offerings without that specific contract. Yeah, okay, maybe they sign something with you, right, as far as doing business, but it's not a co-employment contract that you would have. So here's your advantages. Let's get right to you. Let's make it fun here, right? Because we want you to score a touchdown. We want you to throw that pass and get in the end zone. So in this playbook here, you have some extreme advantages as an agency if you're able to have the look and the feel of a very comprehensive administrative service type of organization. And these are going to be the primary reasons why your prospects or your clients will seek your solution. Okay, so custom pricing here. Custom pricing, when you think about what an employer will pay to get into a PEO, again, they're paying for all of the things, right? They're no matter if they're using those particular services and solutions from that PEO, they're paying for it nonetheless. And so with you, think of an ASO model as an a la carte model. So the employer, you're sitting with that employer, not necessarily with a blank sheet, but kind of, and really being able to then provide or write down what their needs and objectives are, and then you can provide custom pricing for them to purchase the solutions that are needed, specific to each employer. I would then say, as we move to the right, that you can provide a better benefit platform, right? I have known over the years that, as you see PEOs and those entities try to service clients, that a lot of times they may not exactly understand, that market, that area, that geographic area, the carrier, and so forth. And who better that has connections and knows better than anyone the benefit options, the carriers in your area that you serve. And so I truly believe that you have an opportunity to provide a benefit program tailored to their needs, but it actually can be a better benefit offering because you've so tailored it to their needs. Cost savings. What I enjoy tremendously is that you are a broker, right? So as a broker consultant, you can act as a broker and ensure that you're providing all of the options that are out there to a client to truly find, well, we want to find the best option for the client, but let's also hope that that best option is a less expensive one as well. The best option is not always the cheapest one, and so you have an opportunity to really reflect value in what those cost savings actually mean. And lastly here, and again, I've mentioned it a lot, as an agency, many of you have been able to organically build a team or departments, folks that are within your agency to drive compliance needs or compliance offerings to your clients, and you've done a great job. But that can be costly, right? That can be expensive to be able to build that. So having the ability to not only grow organically in this area, but also the ability to partner with those entities who are experts in their field can truly help alleviate or at least mitigate that compliance risk that your employers are facing. Having a resource, a direct resource something that's not impersonal, but that is personalized, and providing personal communication, direct communication back to that employer and those employees is so powerful when it's coming from you. So these are the 4 reasons as we look at the advantages and the disadvantages. As you think about your agency, you have, let's face it, you have gaps. There are areas within your agency that you're not delivering on those specific solutions. And they're just holes. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but you do have to recognize where those gaps exist and then be able to build on that so that you're delivering a complete, comprehensive employee management solution to your groups, to your employer clients. And so I want to look at somewhat here a picture of, this isn't the only picture, but it's a picture of a winning combination, right? So as you think about your agency, and I know you guys do think a lot about this, right? What do you deliver? Mentioned there in the early slide, what's your unique differentiator? Well, it's not just your differentiator. What do you do? What do you sell? Is it just benefits? Now, I show here, and don't be mad, forgive me there, I'm providing it high level. Many of you may do so much more. This is just meant to give some perspective of overall expertise here. But you as a broker, as a benefits broker, you are an expert on plan design. You know the carriers, the networks. I mean, you know it better than anybody. Also, support. That's a very small word, but it means a lot when it comes to what you ultimately support for your clients, right? You're supporting them in compliance, not just in renewals and enrollments. You're supporting participants about their claims, employer questions about qualifying events. I mean, you are handling so much on the support side, but as it's tied, generally speaking, to the benefit side. And then also, there's a lot of engagement and activity as it relates to the enrollment, the renewal and open enrollment process. You guys are so active there. So look at yourself there a second. Did I capitalize there on the key areas of what you are focused on? I'm sure that you guys have others. But when you think about the winning combination, it's incorporating an entity such as PrimePay, right? Or another vendor, but someone such as PrimePay, where we're providing comprehensive employee management solutions from hire to fire or hire to retire through that employee life cycle, where we're also then delivering on payroll and time clock solutions, the various HR and compliance solutions, the pre-tax benefit account options, where ultimately, what if in an administrative service organization, you as a broker now go to your market, go to your clients, not just speaking of the things that you're delivering on the right, but you're also communicating and you've equipped your agency with so much more. Ultimately, and that so with a partner such as PrimePay, we can help fill in those various gaps. So when that prospective client is now looking at a PEO, or your client now is kind of making some considerations for a PEO, well, I mean, if you deliver the offering that's on the screen there today, what I'm showing you, why would they do that? Because we can provide a comprehensive a la carte offering that will be tailored specifically to their needs. Now, I don't want to forget this either, is that an entity such as PrimePay has a unique program called our PrimePay Broker Concierge Partner Program, where we provide marketing materials, content for your website, campaigns for emails, educational webinars for your clients. We can truly make it look, if you partner with that right partner, we can actually make it look like this is absolutely something that you are driving as an agency and are delivering on all these solutions yourself. So the winning combination, that ASO model, is not something that you have to grow organically, but it's certainly something that you have the ability to partner with. I also want to mention this here with you as well, and I want to have you think about what a PEO is given. I told you early on, I gave you some specific metrics there in regard to PEOs. Very interesting, and that's just a tidbit of what they ultimately have provided in regard to statistics and great answers to survey questions and so forth. It's all about the data. What does the PEO have? They have the data. All that information is right there. They know what is going on. And so what I want you to not forget as an agency is that you have an opportunity. I mean, it's not just about the data, it's about the accessibility of that data. And you do need to understand that you have that accessibility because you're going to want that payroll specific data so that you can help that client with eligibility status, with deduction management techniques with FSAs and HSAs. You can help them from an ACA perspective in determining their full-time equivalent status or variable hour measurement periods and so forth. Maybe you need to run a census when you need to on your time. Maybe you need to, because you do so much on the COBRA side for an employer, you need information on when those employees are termed. So getting a termination report, so very important. And then lastly, don't you want to know how things are going for elections in the ancillary lines of products? So, knowing those high earners, maybe you provide key man insurance, looking at retirement deductions, see what the participation level is there as well. So that data, that payroll, think about what that PEO has. If you had a partner that could deliver on the accessibility of that data, think about what more metrics you could provide your employers with in regard to how they're conducting their business. Again, it is turning that benefit strategy conversation and ensuring that it's aligned appropriately with their business strategy. An employer makes so many more decisions other than the benefits. And so what a PEO does is that it goes so deep and at the heart of helping that client kind of achieve or fulfill those specific requirements and obligations that they have to. And they make it easy for that employer to fulfill those obligations. So you have that a strong advantage as well, because a comprehensive offering, that benefit strategy, aligning it with the business strategy, if you're offering a comprehensive offering, you absolutely will compete more effectively against these providers, which in turn, right, these are no dust statements. It's going to help increase revenue potential to your agency. It's going to stabilize client retention, which is so very important. And ultimately, you're going to create a happy client because you're going to meet that ever-increasing employer demand that is being faced on them on a consistent basis. Ultimately, if you think about what I've spoke about here today, I mean, we want you to throw touchdowns. As I mentioned, if you're getting a touchdown every time you're touching the ball, it's less about the defense. It's less about, oh, well, shoot, I don't have that specific offering within my agency and I'm kind of missing a couple pieces. But if you have developed a stronger comprehensive offering to score those touchdowns, defense, just try to hold them at bay from time to time. But we're not too worried if we're scoring every time. So I think that if you begin to think about this a little differently, PEO competitor, yeah, they are a great competitor, but you are sitting in a wonderful spot to throw a tremendous amount of touchdowns, and I think a successful result is inevitable. So I hope that you've enjoyed the webinar. I know that there have been several questions. There are some real specific questions that I see. I might have answered some of them as I've gone through the presentation here today. As we wrap up here our webinar here today, I do want to thank you for attending. You have a lot of there's other competitive meetings and situations that you could have attended today, but you chose to attend our webinar. So we want to thank you for that. Our next webinar is going to be on Wednesday, July 12th. We normally have it on the first Wednesday of the month, but July 5th is that week of July 4th, and we'll let you guys vacation. So enjoy that week. We'll come back to you here on July 12th, so look for the invites that will be coming here momentarily to you. We will be providing a follow-up email here to you. And I would just ask that you look for those webinar follow-up materials. There will be a link to the recording. And for our BC exclusive partners, we will be providing a copy of the presentation slide deck. And we have recently revised a BC brief that's focused on addressing payroll questions with your clients. And we'll also provide, or at least point you toward, this compliance checklist that, again, can maybe open the discussion with you, with your clients, a little more than just benefits, but you're talking more, a more business strategy. And lastly, if you all are sitting there going, wow, I don't know where I can get that information. How on earth do I want the slide deck. I want to be, part of that BC program. Love for you to get with our broker success specialist and our broker concierge team. You can reach out to them in any of the, areas there above, call or email. See us on Twitter and LinkedIn. But we'd love to talk to you about how we could activate these comprehensive solutions and completely equip your agency to be able to be more formidable and certainly competitive as your clients are seeking efficiencies and abilities to control costs and manage their compliance. Well, you know what? You can do that too. And we can help through our broker concierge program. So please feel free to reach out to our team. They're ready to talk to you and just share more about what our offering and what we're able to provide to you here going forward. All right, with that will conclude our webinar here today. And really appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you here on the 12th. So have a great day. That will conclude our webinar.